After last night's soaking, we're watching for another round of storms this afternoon, where they're locally located right now, and if they'll be severe, it's in the forecast coming up.
Thanks, Mike. And we take you on a tour of the damage caused by last night's storms Mike was just talking about, how those who are cleaning up today compare the damage to Hurricane Matthew.
And teenagers rescued from fast-moving water, what their scary experience can teach all of us as we prepare for the possibility of flash flooding. WRAL News at 4 starts right now.
This is WRAL News, your #1 source for local news.
And we begin this Friday afternoon with a live look at downtown Raleigh as the weekend begins for many of you. You want to take your umbrella with you tonight. We have a chance of severe weather throughout the evening. Always appreciate your time. I'm Ken Smith.
And I'm Deborah Morgan. Gerald and Catherine have the day off. Meteorologist Mike Mays is in the WRAL Weather Center with a look at when we could see the first drops of rain around here. Mike?
Well, Deb, some locations are already seeing it's more in the Sandhills right now, but here in the Triangle, very little happening. But we do expect that to change this evening. First off, we do have that threat for severe weather, whereas yesterday it was confined to our northern counties. Pretty much everyone has a level 1 risk for severe storms. That's the dark shaded green area. We're watching out for damaging winds, very heavy rainfall. Remember the rainfall we had last night? Some of those storms could produce that kind of rain and the frequent lightning. It was like a strobe lighting show for some locations last night with constant lightning strikes and the severe storms we saw. This is what's happening statewide right now. Most of the thunderstorm activity is off to the west towards Charlotte. We have some activity close to home in the Sandhills. But what we're going to watch out for this evening, like last evening, is the training of showers and storms. Notice how they're all kind of in a line here. So you get one batch to move on by, and more could replace that, and that could be resulting in some localized flooding. Again, right now, the heaviest thunderstorms we're seeing are Harnett County, Hoke County, Moore County, but we do expect this to increase as we get through the evening. Here in the Triangle, about a 40% chance for storms 7, 8, 9 o'clock. And by the time we get to 11 and 12 o'clock, with the loss of the heating of the day, Deb, these will gradually die down. More storms possible tomorrow as well. They'll be in a certain location. We'll explain coming up in just a few minutes when Kat has the forecast. Deb?
All right. Thank you, Mike.
Johnston County saw heavy rain overnight with damaged roads, forcing emergency crews to close them. People are also forced to evacuate a shelter in Smithfield. WRAL's Adam Owens toured the area today. He joins us live with what he saw. Adam.
Ken, I'm standing in one of the more dramatic-looking spots. We're on Vermont Street, where neighbors tell us water was really just rushing over the pavement here, and it was able to undermine and ultimately collapse a large portion of the street. I hope the camera does it justice. It's a very, very large hole in this area. Town officials in Smithfield tell me they recorded nearly 6 inches of rain overnight, and that surprised a lot of people here. That includes people at a local shelter. 10 people in this facility were forced to leave around 3 a.m. this morning. Flooding that was gathering outside started creeping inside. We took a walk through that facility where every room was affected. I'm told there were 5 inches of water inside that building. The shelter also lost a lot of donated supplies. Devastating, especially when you consider that this has happened to this shelter before. The previous flood at the shelter was after Hurricane Matthew.
This is our second time going through this. It's challenging. We have a wonderful staff that was able to respond, feeling kind of overwhelmed, but I know that as last time, we will get through this.
And Ken, this is the second time at least that this street has been washed out as well. It was also washed out during Hurricane Matthew as well. So they'll need to put this back together, and depending on what tact, what plan the town uses, the Public Works Director tells me that could take weeks and take a whole lot of money. Ken.
Adam Owens reporting tonight in Johnston County. Adam, thanks. Well, the WRAL weather app makes it easy to track severe weather no matter where you are. You can also receive weather alerts based on your location. The WRAL weather app is available for Apple and Android devices.
Tropical Storm Barry could become a hurricane in the near future. Regardless, it's expected to bring a lot of rain to Louisiana, and the state is doing its best to prepare. More than 200 floodgates in 2 parishes were expected to be closed by the end of today. Meteorologist Kat Campbell is tracking Barry in the Hurricane Center.
And Kat, that area could take a pounding. How much rain are they looking at down there?
The rain is the big story with this storm system. Again, we're talking over 20 inches of rain possible. Tropical Storm Barry right now, it has strengthened about 20 miles per hour stronger in terms of the wind gusts with the storm as opposed to what we saw at this time yesterday. But the flooding risk is the big story. And to put this into perspective, parts of Louisiana are under a very high risk for flooding tomorrow once that storm makes landfall. Here in North Carolina, our map was pink, and we were under this very high risk category back with Florence. So it is going to be a very serious flooding situation that this storm will likely produce. Right now, it's very slow moving. That's one of the issues. It's moving west-northwest at only 5 miles per hour, and we continue to see the pressure drop, and that is a sign that this system is strengthening. The current wind 65 miles per hour. If that number goes up to 75 miles per hour, that would be hurricane status. So meteorologist Mike Mays will have the new advisory information coming up at 5 o'clock today. But the latest forecast track showing no major changes. It is forecast to make landfall as a Category 1 storm early tomorrow. It will continue to track to the north, eventually weakening. And as the remnants continue to track to the northeast after that, we could see some rain here locally. We'll talk more about that and the timeline for that rain coming up in the full forecast.
Tough few hours ahead for our neighbors to the south. Thanks, Kat.
Yeah, the Mississippi River is already approaching flood level, and that storm hasn't even made landfall, as Kat was just telling us. Tropical systems are categorized by their wind speeds, but the major concern here is the water. It's already covering the streets in several low-lying parishes in Louisiana. A handful of mandatory evacuations are in effect, and more could be issued.
Look, there are 3 ways Louisiana floods: storm surge, high rivers, and rain. We're going to have all 3.
Ouch. People who live in Louisiana are preparing by stocking their pantries and buying plenty of fuel and supplies. Visitors are heading to the airport hoping to take off before Barry arrives in full force. You can track the storm and learn more about the system as it makes its way through the Gulf. Just search hurricane on WRAL.com.
I'm Mark Boyle in the Live Center. We're going into the weekend. A lot of people are going to want to get out on the water and the river because it's so hot. But river keepers are asking people to stay out of the river, especially by the Buffalo Road canoe launch along the Neuse River. Right in this area, there was some water sampling going on, and they've determined that there are high levels of fecal bacteria in the water. So for right now, again, the river keeper is asking people to stay out of the water along the Neuse River in that community for the next couple of days. You can get sick, and you can also have some types of enhanced skin irritations as well if you get in the river with those increased and higher levels of fecal bacteria. Back to you.
Mark, thanks. Robeson County father is behind bars tonight on $3 million bond in connection with his daughter's murder. 17-year-old Jonathan Barton appeared in court today as he's charged with first-degree murder and child abuse in Barton's 1-year-old daughter, Jada Lynn. She was taken to Southeast Regional Medical Center after being found unresponsive Tuesday. She had bruises on her body and was pronounced dead at the hospital. An autopsy has been performed, but the results have not been released. Within the past hour, police released the name of a pedestrian struck and killed in Fayetteville. Sky 5 flew over the scene on Cliffdale and Bunsey roads. Police say 31-year-old Charles Mills was hit around noon. He died at the scene. The road was shut down for a couple of hours, but is now back open. Police have not said if charges will be filed. Lane closures in a busy area near downtown Raleigh could lead to backups this weekend. Crews are doing work on the Capitol Boulevard Bridges project. It will impact northbound lanes of Capitol Boulevard between the Cube Smart self-storage facility and the Wade Avenue exit. The 2 inside lanes will be closed, which means only the outside lane will be open. Closures will start at 9 tonight and continue through Monday, 6 a.m.
Good to know if you're heading to Sunfest. Well, another member of President Trump's cabinet is gone. Secretary of Labor Alex Acosta resigned today amid criticism, not of how he's doing his job now, but because of how he handled a plea deal more than 10 years ago. Chris Pallone has the president's reaction to Acosta's decision.
Cabinet Secretary Alex Acosta out at the Department of Labor.
So I submitted my resignation to the president, effective 7 days from today.
Acosta told President Trump Friday morning he doesn't want to distract from the president's agenda.
Cabinet positions are temporary trusts. It would be selfish for me to stay in this position and continue talking about a case that's 12 years old rather than about the amazing economy we have right now.
Acosta under fire this week after the arrest of convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The arrest and sex trafficking charges against Epstein cast new scrutiny on a secret plea deal Acosta made with the financier more than a decade ago when Acosta was a U.S. attorney. Acosta defended the deal and President Trump defended Acosta.
But I just want to let you know, this was him, not me, because I'm with him. He's a tremendous talent. He's a Hispanic man. He went to Harvard, a great student. And in so many ways, I just hate what he's saying now because we're going to miss him.
The story also drew unwanted interest in President Trump's relationship with Epstein, who he called a terrific guy in 2002.
I haven't spoken to him in probably 15 years or more. I wasn't a big fan of Jeffrey Epstein, that I can tell you.
Reaction swift from Democrats who called for Acosta to resign.
It's about time.
Deputy Secretary Patrick Pizzella will become acting Secretary of Labor next week. Chris Pallone, NBC News.
Acosta's departure means the Trump administration no longer has any Hispanics serving in cabinet positions. It also means 4 cabinet agencies are being run by acting secretaries.
Wall Street ending a record-breaking week on a high note. The Dow Jones jumped more than 240 points, an all-time high. This is all because the Federal Reserve signaled a rate cut was coming. The Nasdaq gained 48 points. The S&P climbed nearly 14.
Good to see that as we end the week. Yeah. Fast-moving water swept several teenagers into danger.
There's 5, 6 grown men tugging, pulling as hard as they can, pulling a 120-pound teen, and it felt like we were pulling a truck.
Coming up, hear more from the officer who helped to save the teens' lives.
And next week could be a busy week for package thieves. That's when many of you will take advantage of Amazon Prime Day. The 3 things you can do to protect your purchases.
And food debris falling on ice cream. That's just one example of the violations health inspectors found at local restaurants. 5 on your side's restaurant ratings report is coming up at 5.